Papua New Guinea, May last year. A team of volunteer dental professionals. No government funding, no commercial contract, no safety net. Just a group of people who decided that the patients they were about to see deserve the same standard of care as anyone sitting in a clinic in Brisbane. My guest today is the person who made that happen. She is the founder and CEO of the Esesson Foundation, a humanitarian organisation registered in both Australia and India that delivers healthcare, education and opportunity to some of the most vulnerable communities in the Indo-Pacific. She's also a wing commander in the Royal Australian Air Force, currently commanding 1 Expeditionary Health Squadron, the unit responsible for Australia's forward deployed surgical capability in austere operational environments. 2 roles, same skills, different uniform, 0 different level of commitment. Dr Ajitha Sugnanam, welcome to Intelligence Optimised. Ajitha, I want to jump straight into PNG. Your last trip there. Take me inside that trip and what did the team find when they got there and who were the patients?
So last year in PNG was actually our second time in PNG. The patients are the general public. We targeted schools. If you know anything about PNG, even though they don't have like an accurate census, their population's like 1/3 maybe the Australian population, with one major completely facilitated hospital in that entire country, which is POMGEN, Port Moresby General Hospital. And although they have other bigger hospitals, they're not appropriately staffed. And then they've got some private entities as well. So realistically, the numbers of the public just don't get treated for even the most primary of conditions that you'd expect, like the basic care pharmacies can take care of here.
And how do the patients find out about you, or the population find out that you're coming and can get the care that you give them?
Well, every time we've done it in PNG, we've been in collaboration with local government and local health authorities for not just the purposes of making sure that the project is well operated, but also to make sure that we provide care where the health department identifies a gap. And this time and last time, we did general medicine, acute condition presentations in dentistry, gynecology as well.
And are there any specific conditions that you see more prevalent than others?
Do you know what's really sad? Is acute respiratory conditions, skin lesions from, I guess, poor water conditions, poor hygiene, just basic needs not being met. Lots of infectious diseases. From a dental perspective, lots and lots of dental caries affected by either diet or just what's available in the community.
It's interesting. Early 2000s, we supported the USNS Mercy up in Madang, big US hospital ship, 1,000 beds. You obviously know it, but for our listeners, and obviously it's a lot of care programs and soft diplomacy around the Indo-Pacific. But Madang Hospital and the chief surgeon on board, he was Amalio.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest there was a large instance of tumours on jaws.
There's everything. Everything in any general population exists in PNG as well. And there isn't, I guess, they might have the equipment, but there's not the clinicians, right?
Yeah. And I think that's the problem, right? Yeah. And especially with the young people, it's pretty sad to see people with big tumours, as an example, on their jaws and can't get the treatment until people like yourself or others go in and out of their good hearts, provide those services. That's lovely. Ajitha, the PNG mission, it didn't happen by itself. You've self-funded dental camps in Mumbai. You've run women's empowerment conferences, to thousands of women, workshops, all out of your own pocket. At what point did you stop waiting for someone else to solve the problem and decide to solve it yourself?
It really doesn't come from that sort of selfless place, to be honest. When I graduated in 2010, I did a project with an organisation in Vietnam, and it really came down to their funding model was that the clinician paid for everything that it took to run the project. And I think I paid, not only did I cover my own flight costs, but I think I paid $4,000 to this organisation in Vietnam to volunteer for them. And they organised accommodation and food as well and facilitated the project. And when I got there, I'm like, what the hell has my $4,000 been used for? And I kind of just went from there. I'm like, if I'm going to spend $4,000, I might as well just spend it myself and be more effective with it. So that's where the thought bubble came from versus me trying to be like a philanthropist specifically. I like doing the work, fills my cup, as some would say. And then over the years, other people have joined me. So that's kind of how we started.
How exciting.
Yeah.
Ajitha, I want to come back to something later, but there's a version of this gap that exists, not just in PNG or India and elsewhere, but much closer to home. And we'll get there shortly. But Essesson's mission, it runs across 4 pillars. So healthcare, education, living essentials, and providing opportunities. And now that's a broad mandate for a very lean organisation, and you've just described how it's funded, how it's your day-to-day operations. But pick one of those pillars and tell me about a specific community where Essesson has changed something real.
So first I'll tell you that we came up with HELP because it was easy to remember, but also because it hit several things that we were providing. So we don't necessarily do the same extent in every location, but healthcare being the primary, which is the first one. So I'd say healthcare is where we make sustainable impact. And from an education perspective, we also support up to 15 children in India, Rwanda, and Uganda to do primary, secondary education. But we follow through from tutoring to their grades to make sure they have jobs, make sure they're fed, everything. So we don't do many, but we make sure that they actually get through the system. Because I do know some models where, they might get funded, but then they drop out of school shortly after. So we're trying to hope that they actually get jobs on the other end.
Yeah, wow, yeah. That's impactful.
Well, I'll go back to PNG.
Mm-hmm.
You asked me before, what sort of conditions do we see? We saw a 3-year-old child with an infection that had been present for 4 months, couldn't sleep. Their face is swollen about 4 inches. And the reality is we had to find an environment where they could get IV antibiotics, wait for it to come down, and then treat the most benign of conditions. Like you could literally cross the road and get taken care of in Australia. But basically, if we hadn't done it, that child would have gone blind because it would have spread from their mouth to their eye and then probably died. Imagine, from a tooth infection.
Wow. And the impact, anyone passing away, especially in communities in New Guinea, it's quite, a large impact, right? Especially children.
A 3-year-old, the impact of that is crazy anywhere.
Yeah.
Not specific PNG. That's just very sad.
Yeah. And like you said, stuff that could be, you get over-the-counter medicine here in Australia, but they don't have the access to that in New Guinea and other places around the world like that. What you've described, it's an organisation. It's an organisation. It goes to places that most providers won't go to, fair to say.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to stay with that gap for a moment because it's not just the Pacific or a South Asia problem or an Indo-Pacific problem. I said I'd come back to something a bit earlier, and that's bringing it a bit closer to home. So Essesson runs a dental program for refugees and asylum seekers here in Australia as well.
Yep.
People who are here inside our border can't access a dentist because they're not citizens. Tell me what that looks like on the ground.
At the moment, the way we run that particular program is lots of private practices give us their space in times that they're not currently using it. And we facilitate everything from the children to their food to the preventative care they need, any long-term costs they have according to the treatment, so it doesn't fall on the clinic, and the clinicians, and we clean up the space before and after as well. So you wouldn't know we were there. Very low overheads, all volunteers. We did consider a version and are continually working on one where we build our own clinic, but considering the overheads, I'm just trying to make sure that we don't build something that costs more to run than it achieves on the ground.
Yeah, and that's tough for any organisation,
Yeah.
Especially one like yours. So who are the people who volunteer their time with you and to make the difference?
So our group has grown over the years. We've got about 400 volunteers on our books these days, but we've got lots of repeat volunteers that come every single month. They're local Brisbane Gold Coast clinicians that are giving up their weekends to treat whoever needs it for free.
Wow, that's fantastic. I want to touch on something a little bit more closer to home for you as well. So Australia projects health capability across the Indo-Pacific, and we fund projects, we deploy teams, we sign regional health agreements, security arrangements. Yet someone sitting in a suburb in Brisbane right now can't see a dentist. What does that contradiction tell you about how we actually think about health equity?
Well, it's a politically inclined question, isn't it?
Well,
I mean, the truth is, there are other motivations behind all of those other social impact sort of programs. And so they need to be delivered by someone that is passionate about healthcare for you to get bang for buck. The truth is the healthcare model in Australia's public system is actually one of the best in the world, but we still have gaps in terms of members receiving access to that care. So Queensland Health, say, for example, is open during the week for people to access care, but in some niche areas has significant wait lists, right? And that once again comes down to facilities, clinicians, waiting for space to be able to use, lots of other factors that the government may not be like holistically impacting.
Yeah, interesting. Ajitha, let's zoom back for a little. So I remember, obviously, with one of your friends who you introduced me to a couple of years ago, to look at how they could access funding.
Yes, yeah.
So the same problem. It's like,
Yeah.
want to do it. There's a desire to do it. There's the need to do it for people in the community who have real issues, but there's no funding to do it.
And just speaking to you, use this or not use this, but depending on what the model is that you're talking about in the South Pacific, there are a plethora of reasons why people might be hitting healthcare because it's, actually accessing individuals makes an impact. I mean, whether it gets delivered on the ground or not, those projects need to be done quickly to deliver, not be spread over years and planning and all of the nuances that go into a government program that requires governance.
Yeah. And I guess also the other challenges with the Indo-Pacific is it's obviously, especially with countries like PNG, how many islands in PNG, how many islands in the Sollies? It's very difficult to communicate to communities that there's healthcare coming and available, let alone actually delivering it logistically, which is a nightmare.
So you did ask me how we get the notice out to the populations in any of the countries we go to. Generally, the schools is where we target. So months before we arrive, we go get consent from all their parents. Through teachers, we let them know what the spectrum of treatment we're going to provide for. So parents have to sign consent forms so we can deliver. And then the government or the health ministry will bus the children to the location we're treating. So we generally have a full house because we have proper collaborative effort.
It's important. You need the buy-in from the parents. I'm assuming there'd be some challenges in some of those communities as well with literacy and also understanding what does this mean for my child and my family.
It's actually better than you think.
Right.
So usually they're pretty welcoming to any care.
Okay.
The parents are welcome to come to the location so we can explain it to them. The teachers are pretty good. We have teachers and volunteers for translation in all the locations. So we haven't had any issues with them understanding the care.
And so your level of care and the type of care you deliver, obviously it's a specialty. So it'd be very difficult to empower local communities to deliver the sort of healthcare you deliver?
No. Because they're specific to PNG, there are people that want to deliver the care. Sometimes it's equipment or medication based that they don't have access to the same thing. And they probably just need, we have a CPD program where clinicians have to maintain certain CPD, and we have really high levels of education in Australia that all clinicians have access to. That's not the same in those countries. So one of the things we also do is train. So we'll say we're there for 5 days or 2 weeks. We'll allocate 2 days to training local clinicians if they're interested. We're not there to do anything they're not interested in. But if they're interested, we'll talk them through it and teach them so that they can then deliver it themselves.
And leave them with training guides and
I haven't gotten to that stage yet, but we do train. So, for example, we're going to Vanuatu in September. We're taking an orthopedics team to do a list out of their theatre in the hospital. And they're doing 4 days of orthopedic surgery and 1 day of training of their current surgeon and their theatre staff
Wow.
based on what they have requested training in.
It's empowering.
Yeah. And it is so that we can try and close the gap, not just open a gap and then fix it with a solution that, they might not be able to maintain.
So ortho compared to dentistry, like dentistry is obviously very broad. It's not just about, brushing your teeth and flossing your teeth, but prevention, is there much around prevention and you talk about education as well I remember as a young fellow here, even in Brisbane, like you go to the school dentist and you're told to brush your teeth twice a day, floss twice a day.
So we do it. Is it effective? So we do preventative education when we go there through nurses plus our assistants, dentists. We provide all the gear, but I think if you're talking about long-term sustainment of prevention, it has to be embedded in their culture and it has to be supported by government initiatives in their schools, because no child hearing something once is then maintaining that. And it needs parental support, teacher support. So I think that's a longer problem set.
Harder one to solve.
Yeah.
Yeah, generational. You're
Yeah.
right. You're right. Ajitha, you and Essosson have delivered solutions in 14 countries across the Indo-Pacific. Can you give us some examples, some highlights?
Not just the Indo-Pacific, but so we've been to Mexico, to Tijuana, to the slums of Tijuana. We have been to Vietnam, Cambodia. Some of them have been one-offs with other organisations that have asked us to come. And then our long-term sustained projects over the last 15 years are India, Australia, and hopefully many places in the South Pacific like Fiji and PNG and now Vanuatu. But long-term, and Rwanda and Uganda, we've done multiple as well. But essentially that comes out of having people in Australia that are passionate about those countries that we then link into organisations on the ground in those countries to provide regular support to. Here's another example.
Yes.
When you talk about the type of impact, sometimes it's the most basic of care and we're just doing like a filling or extracting a tooth with someone in pain or giving them like a steroid for some sort of skin lesion they've had for years. But sometimes it's major. And an example of a major one is actually when we worked with an organisation in India. There was a young girl in an orphanage who was helping in a kitchen, and she poured oil on herself, and it burnt herself from the bottom of her chin to her chest. Severe burns, like severe contraction of the skin as well. So she couldn't do eating, talking, anything. And we worked with that organisation and multiple others to get her to have over 20 operations with plastic surgeons and burn surgeons over the world. So she is now married and has kids of her own. That's 15 years down though. But that's something. So we do everything. It really depends on the care that is required. And when you have a spectrum of clinicians from a EN, paramedic, nurse to plastics and neurosurgeon networks, you can do anything, right? It's the clinical skills that achieve those things, not me. It's about putting the network together.
It's an old saying I've got, your network is your net worth.
Oh, absolutely.
Let's zoom back out for a second if we could.
Yep.
Essosson operates it's across Australia, India, PNG. Now that footprint, it maps almost exactly onto Australia's strategic neighbourhood. Is that a coincidence or is it something that you did deliberately with the geography?
It's funny. Well, I'm of Indian heritage, so that's why I started there.
Yep.
I wanted to go back and do something for a country that my parents came from.
Yeah.
And I'm technically heritage of. And I did it there for 10 years before I moved to Australia and our region. So Australia initially happened during COVID. We weren't allowed to travel. So then because I am so passionate about continuing it, I was like, okay, time to see where the gaps are in our system and do that. So during COVID is when I started the Australian branch and the Australian programs because we couldn't do it anywhere else. And then the Indo-Pacific was, funnily enough, after I became commanding officer and wanted to not only understand the region better, but I was like, these guys are 3 hours. India's like 12 hours. Why am I going so far when the need is so prevalent in this area? And then when we did our first PNG project and we treated over 3,000 people with the most, because prior to that, I was ignorant of what was required in our region. And when I saw it, I'm like, right, I don't really need to go that far out. There is reasons to stay within our region. Plus, because it's so close, we can go more frequently.
I guess when you think about it as well, putting your defence hat on, a healthy region is healthy regional security too, right? Would you say they tie into each other?
Oh, absolutely. And the relationships as well. Like we, even when I'm not there for a project, we continue to keep the relationship. You know, their health administration processes are very similar to Australian because we're trying to all be interoperable. So the more we contact and the more we continue to assist each other and train each other and have similar processes, the easier it is to work together.
And tell me, are there records kept of the work you do in those communities? Do the local authorities keep the...
So I keep them. That's just because, you know, when a lot of nonprofits that do healthcare, some do it really well and some don't do it so well. And so when you go in to build the relationships, there is an apprehension from the local community that they're going to be long-term post issues that you're going to leave them with, right? Because you're just tapping in and tapping out. And they're often like, what if something goes wrong? Who's going to manage that? So we keep records from name, age, group, what is the issue, what did we do, any complications that might come out of it. So I've got all the numbers and all the data. And no, the local government is not keeping it at the same time to that level. Yeah.
Interesting. It's funny, I'm wondering if date of birth is something that you get out of some people up there. And the reason I say that, I used to play footy with one boy from PNG, and I said, when were you born? He said, the wet season.
So we don't get date of birth, funnily, but we do get age because so many of them have similar names. So like just to differentiate them or which class they're in or whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah, is generally what they'll tell us.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. Ajitha, earlier I mentioned something, and I want to come back to it. You don't just run a humanitarian organisation. You also command a military unit whose job it is to deliver surgical care. And in the most austere environments as well, you know, the ADF operate in. I want to understand what that means for you and how you think about Essosson.
Do you know, it's funny. The truth is Essosson allows me to both allow me to be versatile in both. Essosson tends to be lighter and leaner than the military, which then enables me to think about how to do that in the military and make us faster. Because I just don't have the money in the foundation to execute the same thing the military does. So I do it at a lot cheaper costs, but almost achieve very similar results. And then I guess the barriers that I would have previously assumed existed, having seen them do it in the military and do it myself, allows me to remove those barriers in the civilian world because I've seen it done. Yeah. And honestly, we've got, whenever we take our teams over, they're a combination of both civilians and military or ex-military. I guess that's just the group that I hang out in. The one thing that I can say is everybody's there for the right reasons, but you'll find the military humans are easier to tell what to do and will stick around for 24 hours a day, whereas the civilians are like, what are my working hours even on a military trip? But they kind of, you know, everybody joins in and works as a team, but there is a difference in just cultural expectations. Military guys are literally like, you know, 21 hours a day and never question me.
On.
Yeah. On.
It is interesting. I mean, having the benefit as well of, you know, being a contractor for so many years in military environments and in places like PNG and places you'd never go on a holiday. And I mentioned the USNS Mercy is a great example. That was early 2000s. One of many missions we supported. But you're right. I remember Dr. Hummeldorf, who was the lead surgeon on board the Mercy, not only for the week before the arrival, which were big, long days, but then I remember him operating 18 hours straight, not stopping. And with our ground transport crew, I remember I went along with him. It was dark, Madang. Security's not the best, even though we had some additional support from the US. And I remember walking into this hospital, and it was just military crew operating, just the surgeons operating. And it didn't even feel like a hospital. It felt like a school. You know, you got the school, the cement seats and canteens. This is a bit weird. Anyway, and you walk in, they've got pop-up lights, they've got, pop-up curtains, the whole lot. And there's this patient on a slab of cement. And Kurt, one of the first things I'd ever seen that sort of made me go, oh, hang on. He had this fellow's jaw on the table next to him. He's like, oh, no, come back in a few hours, I'm still going. He'd been going for 12 hours. Not done. Keep going. He did that, not just him, but the whole team, day after day for 7 days. And it was all just about getting the job done. It was amazing. It was a great feeling.
It's so good. Like even when you bring both sides of the team together, they see, I guess, the differences between both, but then come together because they realise what they're there for.
Yeah. It's funny, even the support crew, being contractors, even, and you're just used to you work the same hours, you do whatever you do. But we had this one instance, it was because the Mercy was too big to come alongside in Madang, so it was just doing bricks out at sea. So we had tenders going back and forth. But the very last tender that was going, and some guys we were working very closely with, for, you're living with them for 7 days and making things happen that are very difficult to make happen in those. So landowner arrangements, you've got that community engagement, you've got movement control, you've got language barriers. But I just remember this one fellow. He's in his uniform and he's jumping in the last tender, and he rips the American flag off of his uniform and gives it to me, and he says, "We could not have done this without you."
Oh.
And that one little badge just makes you go, you know what? I would gladly do 24/7 again just to see the outcome, which are these kids and these people in this community.
And it's about the group that you go with as well.
Yeah.
Like in the last few years, we've taken teams of about 20, and when you put them through 14-hour days plus travel on either side of that, there is a bond they create that they have for a lifetime. And every time I put out nominations for people that have interests, the same people keep putting their hand up because they have an experience that clearly is different from what they're able to achieve in their day-to-day lives in terms of camaraderie, what they give back. When you talk about, we've got healthcare needs in Australia as well, it's also about like filling the cup for the clinicians, going and using their skills to the full spectrum of care that they can't do in Australia.
And you're working with less on the ground over there. So obviously, just say, for example, you're working in a local Australian clinic or an operating environment where I would assume you've got access to a lot of things, kit and tools and people. How's it work getting over there? Do you have to pack everything and take it all over?
Yes.
Right.
Well, bit of both. Which country do you want to talk about? Because they're all different.
Right. Well, okay. So PNG is a good example, but you're off to Vanuatu in very shortly too. So are there differences in planning for PNG?
Yeah. Well, once again, the sections of healthcare we provide is based on what the health department asks for. Mm-hmm. So in Vanuatu, they've asked for general medicine, dentistry, and an orthopedics team. They did also ask for a cleft palate team, but there's 2 organisations in Australia that already do that. So all I did was come back, call one of them, and then hook them up because I'm like, I don't need to fix a gap that someone else can fix better than I can. So are they
going at the same time as you?
No, at a different time that's suitable for them, but they've got all the equipment already, all the clinicians. So I was like, they're off to do that for them. So we've taken orthopedics, dentistry, and general medicine. It's a combination of in-hospital care and outreach. The in-hospital, I guess the Vanuatu Theatre has most of the equipment, and we did video calls to show the orthopedic surgeons here the equipment to make sure that they had everything they needed. Anything they don't need, I fundraise for here and procure. And then pharmaceuticals, I will be talking to pharmaceutical organisations in Australia, but I've also talked to the ones in Vanuatu just in case, and they're going to, in Vanuatu, they'll give it to us for cost. In Australia, we'll see where my luck leads me. But yeah, so what I mean by outreach, we take all our own equipment, portable kits, portable x-ray, pharmaceuticals, consumables, all shipped over there. And we're fortunate enough to have a relationship with Toll at the moment. So they are Global Toll. They are freighting all our goods to Vanuatu for free.
Wonderful. Our good friend Perry Singh?
Yes.
Wonderful. Yeah. That's great. And you need more support like that, not just in logistics, right, but with with other areas of the operation to make it feasible to keep delivering this remote care. And we'll get to that. Often in working in austere and remote environments, such as those that you work in and Essesson work in, it's hard enough to get things done, given the political environment, the fact that that there's not a great deal of support for movement control and other bits and pieces. Have you ever come across any issues where government or landholder representatives have demanded bribes?
Fortunately, not in the South Pacific. And if they are, they're doing it on the government side, not on my side, because they don't know me well enough. But I have experienced, I'll tell you one example. In India, we had someone pick up, this was like in my early 20s too. It's one of the first projects that I ever did. It almost scarred me for life, but we pushed through. We had someone pick up eye drops, saline eye drops, and go, I don't know whether they used them or not, but they went straight to the news reporter to complain that it had done something to their eyes. They didn't even know what it was. And the only way I found out about it was because my uncle is a barrister and well known, and the news reporter called my uncle, and then he called me, and then I asked the news reporter to come to the practice, and I was like, I've got nothing to gain from doing something wrong. I then got the member to come back as well. I was like, bring me the guy that put in the complaint about me. And then I was like, do you know how old I am? Do you know that I'm doing this out of my own money? And then I said, do you have children? And he said, yep, 3 daughters. Now imagine one of them spending like $30,000 of their own money to come do good for the community, and someone in the community doing what you just did. That's probably the worst thing that's happened to me. But he put in a complaint to the news report to essentially then try and, I don't know, swindle me for money or sue me or something, because I guess his angle was completely different. Nothing actually happened to him medically. It was purely just humanity in the worst side.
That's really sad.
Yeah.
You often see, we did the mobilisation and the construction of the temporary accommodation on Manus Island. Funny enough, with Toll and Perry, 2013 or 12 from memory.
Yeah.
7 Antonovs out of Sydney.
That's huge.
Yeah. 46 C-130s from Moresby to Manus. So myself and another fellow, Doug Tate, and a group of builders. I got the job of sleeping at Jackson Airport in Port Moresby for 7 nights to make it happen. Doug got the great job of living on Manus Island to make it happen. And Doug, former Special Forces guy, just gets things done. Lovely guy. But he's also a builder. He's a bit of everything. Crazy. But I remember night 2, the second Antonovs landed at, and of course, Antonovs don't often land in Moresby. So people are going, what's going on here? Then they realise what was going on. And so some of the security guards at the airport, from the first night, they come up, oh, yeah, all good. You got all the dispensations. Okay, off you go. Mind you, the Ukrainian Antonov pilots were, rolling out of their cabin drunk, vodka bottles rolling down the aisle. But then the night 2, these security guards, or they're actually customs officials, rocked up drunk to the airframe, 2 a.m, demanding money. Otherwise, they weren't going to let us unload everything to get onto the C-130s.
Actually, I've had similar stuff in airports occur when I'm bringing in equipment, because they're like, what is this stuff? This person's clearly doing something. And they'll be like, we won't let you take it in unless you give us some cash. Sometimes I have paid that because I just can't be bothered if it's low enough. And other times, like you said, it's who you know. So I just make a phone call and make it disappear.
Yeah.
But it happens everywhere, I think.
It's sad. I get it, especially in New Guinea as an example. Unfortunately, it's desperation. It's people that have got nothing. Go, well, maybe I can get something here to feed my family, or greed. Who knows? But you're right. It's who you know. You make that one phone call
and it disappears.
Yeah,
yeah.
But that's earned.
Yeah.
Those relationships are earned.
Yeah. Tijuana.
Oh,
I'll tell you that one. So we went to Mexico. Did dentistry and general medicine again. This was right before COVID. So it was like December 2019. And we were working with another organisation on the ground, and they had like kids in the slums, and we had treated them all. We wanted to provide more treatment for some of the kids that needed some more complex treatment. They don't have them we didn't have any proper networks in Mexico. We did in the States though. So, and by we, I mean me and the organisation. We knew some surgeons across the border in the United States. And I was like, yep, I can arrange that. Anyway, the lady who ran the organisation basically said to me, there's no way we can get them across the border. And then told me this story about how she tried to do that for another child, didn't tell anyone. But when they tried to evacuate the child, they literally said, coming back the next morning, we'll get you at 7 a.m. We'll bring you back, after you've finished, or we might just take you over to the United States for education or whatever. The next day they came back and the child was killed because those slums are run by the cartels and they don't want anyone to know that they can leave. They don't want you to try. So there has been, like when we went there, we couldn't do any of the complex treatment in the States because we couldn't even just get them out for care. Crazy though.
It's heartbreaking.
It's like out of a movie.
Ajitha, there's a phrase that I keep coming back to, when I think about your story, and I have been fortunate enough to know you for a little while and blessed to call you a friend, but I'm going to hold on to that for a moment and see if you land there yourself. One Expeditionary Health, you can put on a fully operational surgical facility, and we sort of just touched on that a second ago. ICU, radiography, sterilisation. You can put that into a tent in a field, minimal setup time because you've got a lot of people doing it for you, I guess, as well.
Mm.
What does that kind of discipline look like when you talk about taking that off a base and into a community that has nothing? So we just touched on the fact that you've got to assemble things and send it there, but how do you then set it all up? How do you manage the security of it?
Are you talking about in Essesson?
Sorry, in Essesson.
Ah, yes.
Definitely. So let's think about it from both sides. So let's have a look at the blue machine. Lots of arms and legs, lots of machinery. Yes, there are budgets, but not, compared to Essesson where, minimal arms and legs, no machinery, very, very thin budget.
Yeah. So, jokes aside, Army and Air Force are very different.
Mm.
Yep. So they both do things differently, have different numbers of humans to execute it too. But it's very similar, actually. The difference in Essesson being the nonprofit doesn't ever operate alone. So whereas the military will do all of the components alone. So we'll have like our own aircraft, we have our own loadies and suppliers to load it. We have our own logistics and pharmaceutical system. They'll have like a joint logistics unit that provides our pharmaceuticals, that kind of thing. Whereas in Essesson, that's a collaboration between lots of government and corporate organisations that I've been able to build over the last 10 years. So in PNG, we have City Pharmacy that provides all our pharmaceuticals for free. We've got toll freighting for us, and there's us doing clinical horsepower. The equipment I've procured over the last 15 years, the government assisting with visas and accommodation and flights, as in a government of the country. Yeah, just different models, same stuff needed though.
So it's same skills, different uniform,
Yeah.
different funding model, but zero difference in the level of commitment.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
That's powerful. Yeah. So let's talk about your military training and what it's given you. So what's the military medical training given you that a civilian, practitioner, or even an excellent one, might not have when operating in a resource-constrained environment?
Mindset. Yeah. I wouldn't say that my training is any better than the civilian guys. And to be honest, a lot of the civilians have, depending on the type of civilian and their exposure, are similar as well. But realistically, the difference between me and the average civilian is the mindset to be able to do it and then at least consider the risks and complications that may come from the resource constraint environment, because we have to, and think about the long-term implications of that and well before the project even starts.
Interesting working in those environments, isn't it? You've got to do the best that you can with what you've got. I'd be really interested to know, like obviously a lot of your friends and colleagues go over and work with you, your peers. Those from the civilian world who have never been in that environment, what do they say? What do they, like, 6 months down the track, has it changed the way they do things in the civilian world, or does it? How do they? Does it make an impactful difference on?
I have a boss in Canberra actually who has recently come on every single project of mine because he finds it so rewarding. But it's funny because he goes back and tells people how much he can do with so little because he runs practices in Canberra. And then now he asks me for something in PNG and we don't have it and he's got to think of another way to do it. And he literally comes back, but he probably says to his staff, we've got to do things with a lot less because lots of people don't have all of these things in other countries. Yeah, so it probably changes your ability to consider how you can do things for cheaper but get the same outcome, because the outcome, we're not hoping to give lesser care. Yeah, we're just trying to do it at a lower price with less things.
Ajitha, we're nearly at the end. But, there's one last thing that I want to ask you, and it's not about Essesson's history and about what happens next, but it's to the people who are listening to this right now. There's serious, senior professionals, CEOs, entrepreneurs, there's policymakers, there's people with means and networks. What do you want them to do? And be specific. What do you need?
What do I need? You know me over the years.
Yes.
Donations are not my preference of support.
No.
I guess if there's clinicians out there that want to support, always happy to take clinical hours. From the other support that is by far the most valuable is building long-term relationship with corporate organisations that follow us through a lifetime together. So because then you don't need to think about that the next year, right? You don't need to think about a funding model because they do their part. Whether that's Toll doing freight or another organisation, whoever does pharmaceuticals, it's part of their business as usual, but they provide that component to a large-scale project. And I provide the healthcare and that SME, and we kind of do everything in collaboration. But you also build a network of very capable humans and businesses that, you can call on an apocalypse to do things together.
It's that good feeling as well. It's such a good feeling delivering programs in austere regions. There's something about it.
Yeah, and doing it with good people.
Yeah, memories.
Yeah.
So look, this is the last one. You run a field hospital for the Australian Air Force. You run a humanitarian foundation across 3 countries, more. You do them simultaneously. What drives that? Now, I don't want the resume answer. I want the real answer. What drives you?
So I guess how I was fortunate enough to start projecting, I think, who would I be proud of at 80? And I actually said this to one of my mentees, but I remind myself of it often when things get hard. It's like, what are the characteristics you want to know yourself for, or you want others to resemble you for? And if that is generosity or kindness, then that's not something you can just say. You actually have to exhibit those qualities longitudinally over your lifetime and make an proactive attempt to do that. And I guess that's what will keep me doing it, because I don't want to look back on my life and be like, I was really effective in the corporate world. I would rather look back and say throughout my entire life, I have always been kind. So that's probably the simple answer.
It's funny, you can drive one car, you can live in one house, you can, but the amount of people's lives that you are changing, not just your patients, but their families, that's sincerely when Eric Young, our mutual friend, introduced us, he said, I need to introduce you to a very special human. And I'm glad he did.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Ajitha, I want to thank you for your time. Thanks. It's very kind of you.
Thank you.
Ajitha, thank you. This is what this show is for. Not the frameworks, not the policy papers, not the strategy documents. The person who looks at a gap and decides that closing it is their personal problem to solve. If this conversation moved you, and I think it will, here's what you can do right now. Go to Essesson.org, ESESSON.org. As Ajitha mentioned, she's not looking for small handouts. She's looking for corporate partners to help deliver better healthcare to all of those in need across the Indo-Pacific. It'll help sponsor a child's education, support dental programs. You can even volunteer if you have the skills, or simply share this episode with someone who has the means to help. Essosson is lead by design. Every dollar goes to the work. Esesson.org. This show exists because people in this audience take national security seriously enough to want the signal, not the noise. If you got something from this episode, the best thing you can do is share it with one person who should hear it. Not a broadcast, one person. The colleague who needs to understand what the Indo-Pacific health gap actually looks like. The leader who thinks this is someone else's problem. The decision maker who has the means to act but hasn't been given a reason to. Send them this episode. Intelligence Optimised is on Spotify, Apple Podcasts and YouTube. Subscribe wherever you listen. Leave a review if you have a moment. It's the fastest way to get this show in front of the people who need it most. I'm Todd Crowley. This is Intelligence Optimised. Uncertainty ends, action begins. We'll see you next time.